Get a cigarette?
Trying to remember what I just can't forget. Feel like a stranger in my hometown.
Where'd you get your guinea pig?
Happens to be the best damn candidate out of 600 volunteers.
Is there anyone still around?
Scott Pollard as the Red Skull, and Matt Salinger as the Marvel Comics hero, Captain America.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Heroic Efforts. Thank you for joining us all again. We have a very, very special episode today because we are diving back further than we have before. We are going back to the pre-Blade Marvel days, so we cannot wait to go through this with you. But before we get started, I am one of your hosts, Andy Foreman. I am also sitting here with Mr. Martin Fisher.
Hello, let's talk about some good cape shit for once.
Hell yeah. And then we are also sitting here with Mr. Nick Talamante.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? And finally, my name pronounced correctly. I love it. Appreciate it.
For the record, he has never told me that.
You've known each other for how many years?
4 years at this point.
I always forget it. I just don't want to be rude.
It was about this time, 4 years ago, that we were starting the Polypod. So... happy 4-year anniversary, buddy. I'm glad we're talking about stuff that's more interesting than school elections now.
Oh, man, how time flies, brother. Happy to be here.
Hell yeah. And talking about time flying, that's the plot of this movie today. Huh?
Ooh, segue. Beautiful.
Bravo.
Today, we are talking about one of my personal favorites, Albert Pyun's Captain America from 1990. Oh boy, let's get into this, boys.
Hell yeah.
Oh man, I would just like to start by giving you guys a little bit. We always start with a background, but I would like to give you guys my background for this.
Yes, absolutely.
I bought this movie in April of 2008 on the first time that I met Stan Lee. I was in 4th grade. I'm looking at the poster I got signed by him right now. It's still up in my room. That day, my dad and grandpa took me. I got to meet friggin' Stan Lee. I got 2 things signed by him. I bought Captain America on bootleg. I bought the Aquaman pilot from the CW on bootleg. I got a Shazam action figure. I got an Iron Man action figure. I got a Swamp Thing comic and 2 John Byrne Namer comics. It was awesome. Truly one of the best days of my childhood. And then I went home and watched Captain America 1990, and I loved every second of it.
That's extra special. Was this at a Comic-Con or a different convention? Where was this?
This was at Frankenson's collectible show, so you better believe I was sweating my ass off, but I did not care. I also got to see the guy who played the robber in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies there on the same day. So it was truly a magical day with 2 equally famous Marvel contributors.
That's right.
Yeah. The guy that capped Uncle Ben?
Yeah. Now here we are decades later, and I'm forcing my friends to watch this. I cannot believe how time is truly a flat circle. So anyway, this is one of the earliest Marvel movies. Not quite as early as the Captain America serial from the 40s or the 2 Captain America movies from the 70s, but we're not that desperate yet. We're only on episode 4 right now. We should probably just give a background of where comic book movies and Marvel adaptations were when this came out.
Oh, we were in the dumps.
Yeah, let's kind of center ourselves.
Well, okay, we were partially in the dumps based on comic book movies. So, brief aside, anybody who knows this knows that Christopher Reeve's Superman in 1978 kicked off the entire thing. It was a huge movie, giant blockbuster, huge bunch of stars, ranked up there with Star Wars and Close Encounters as far as reviving science fiction in the late 70s. Then it petered out thanks to some producers that we will be talking about today, with Superman 4, which is a future episode. Then 2 years later, the superhero genre was revitalized yet again with Tim Burton's Batman, another massive success, making over $400 million in 1989. So everyone started doing, and this will be a subject for a future episode too, everyone started doing pulp hero adaptations, whether it was The Shadow, Dick Tracy, a Phantom, or what was the Rocketeer. So there was a bunch of pulp hero adaptations, and I think it's worth noting that Captain America is from that same era that all of those characters were created, because they just kept going back to the 40s when they were adapting these things. But as far as Marvel adaptations goes, really the only notable one that was out was the Bixby Ferrigno Incredible Hulk show, which we can have a future episode on later, but I'm going to say right now, still one of the top Marvel adaptations. Fantastic show, at least as far as portrayal-wise goes.
Oh, yeah. It's
so
great.
there was some... Yeah, so Marvel had a little bit of exposure within pop culture. And obviously, everybody knew Spider-Man and the X-Men just from, osmosis. But Marvel was pretty down in the dumps. The only other two Marvel movies that had come before this were Dolph Lundgren's Punisher, which is... okay, but then also Howard the Duck.
When we do that Dolph Lundgren Punisher episode, I will be the one championing that movie.
Yeah, and I will be in the middle ground for sure. It's better than Warzone, but that's for a future episode. Right now, we're on Captain America. And I think it's worth saying that this is obviously following Batman 89, and this looks... Again, I described Jonah Hex this way in the last episode. This looks like an Asylum movie made to cash in on the success of Batman. They gave Albert Pyun $10, a few frozen meals for catering, and some good vibes, and that was all he had to work with.
This shit is rough in the beginning, man.
Yeah, take us away, guys. I've been talking too long.
Well, I guess I'll just say outright, I have no personal history with this movie whatsoever. I saw it one time on television, probably 15 years ago. It probably was playing on like Sci-Fi Channel or something like that back in the day. And all I could remember for years was basically just like the opening sequence where Cap fights Red Skull and then shoots off in the fucking rocket. That's all I could remember of that movie. And I just remember being like, it wasn't particularly good. So I haven't had that affinity growing up for it. So that made this specific rewatch a little bit more special, and I'll give my current opinion soon enough. But I don't have that experience really with it. Captain America as a character is also someone where it's like, I've read the more landmark runs, but he is not a character where I'm like, I gotta read everything that's centered on this character. He's not like that. I've seen all the films. I like my fair share of them, but it's not a character I'm particularly super interested in. So I feel like this is a pretty strong, like, Saturday morning cartoonish film to capture the character, though, overall. Mm-hmm. So that's my background on it. Nick, what do you feel about it?
Yeah, so I have even less of a connection to this movie. Like, I only watched this, I finished watching this maybe like 15 minutes ago before we started recording. I just finished it, so I just watched it for this episode, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised by it's got a lot of charm. There's obviously a lot we're gonna get into in terms of what didn't work, including that just shoestring ass budget. But this movie surprised me in just how I think the quality for what two nickels and that they were working with. I think they kind of pulled off, at least in a sincere, and that's going to be a major thing for this, but a sincere attempt at this. And I think Marty nailed it. It's a very Saturday morning cartoon, including that fucking Acme ass rocket sequence that we'll talk about. But overall, I'm not mad about it. This is one of the few saving graces I feel like I'm going to get doing this show, where it wasn't something I hated. This was actually a really charming, so I can see why it's special to Andy in particular.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine being like 10 years old. You've just met Stan Lee that day, and then you're watching and also being a particular fan of the golden age of Marvel Comics. Mm-hmm. So all this Captain America stuff I had read at that point was literally the Joe Simon, Jack Kirby 40s World War II propaganda, basically, comics, which are just about fighting the Axis and, endorsing cigarettes or whatever they were doing back in World War II. But those are great comics. They're super fun. They're super pulpy. They're super to the point. So watching this, I'm like, oh, this is actually getting the tone pretty damn well for what I, as a 10-year-old, really liked about the Simon and Kirby comics. The plot is stupid as hell, but are we not talking about a comic book movie that was made for $10? Of course it's going to be stupid as hell.
No, absolutely. Yeah. What was that, Andy?
Should we break down the plot?
I will let you.
Yeah, let's honestly.
I'll let you guys do that because honestly, like I watched it today and I'm just like I remember him going in the ice and then like him trying to get up with his girlfriend again and she's old and then they fight.
Well, okay, you basically described most of what the emotional core of this movie is less than 10
That's at
words.
least like 45%.
Okay, so the movie opens as all family-friendly comic book superhero movies should, with Nazis massacring a family and stealing a child, and then performing human experimentation on him. So that's the opening.
Don't forget
There's not much more.
I gotta say, dude,
I was gonna say, don't forget the sick ass like Red Skull rat puppet thing they have.
I was just about to say, like the movie opens up. It's honestly it hooked me because I was like, okay, I'm not really sure why we're in Italy. You know what I mean? We're following a couple kids. There's a guy playing. There's a young boy playing the piano with his family. It's very wholesome. Then Mussolini fascists show up, gun down his entire family, take this kid to a castle, and then there's this giant like you just have these Nazis watching this giant like just Red Skull rat. That's the only way to describe it. It's like was it CGI? Or was it a puppet? I couldn't tell.
It
was a puppet.
It was definitely a puppet. In 1990, with $2, it was a puppet.
So it was this fugly ass looking red rat. And I from that moment I was like, okay, there's some charm going on here. This does not look good, but it's like I like that they were like, we want to have a big fucking rat in the movie. I want my big red rat, and yeah, then we just go to human experiments, and then the movie kicks off and like, oh, that by the way, that's Red Skull, and I'm like, okay, cool, shit, we're moving at breakneck speed, but we're getting onto it. That's his whole origin story in 2 seconds. I love it.
Yeah.
Keep this shit going.
They put the pilot goggles that Anakin Skywalker had in Phantom Menace on him, and then did you see the scientist literally just spinning a dial on it, like there's a fidget spinner glued to the side of it, and then it just cuts to the outside of the castle, and he's screaming. Then it cuts to 1940s California, where the son of J.D. Salinger is going off to war, and they give because the thing is this is definitely not at a time where they would cast two people, like one is pre-serum and post-serum. They definitely wouldn't have the effects to pull this off. So they're like, let's just get the big Captain America dude and say he has polio and have him limp around the entire time. And you know what? Not the worst thing in the world. Like it could go much worse,
It gets the job done. I mean, I already my ears were kind of perked when we were in California and not New York, so I was just like, okay, that's the choice, but I get it for budget reasons. You got to do it on set, so that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I do love that this 6'5" guy. That's this is supposed to be like the the skinny pre-serum Captain America, and it's like, all right, so you have polio, Steve. We need you to act like you have polio. So he just has this like really over-exaggerated limp that he's doing. So when he's running to go see his girlfriend before he gets shipped off, to fight the good fight, he's just like dragging his leg around with this like super over the top limp. I love it. It was very convincing, I guess.
It could have been worse. They could have given him like the Freddie Freeman crutch and having him just like completely limping around, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I actually think the opening of this has a pretty good emotional start where he's like in the kitchen with his mom and she gives him the medal and she's like, just be a little more careful than your dad was, as she starts to like hold back. Linda Dillon's a good actress, and it doesn't matter if she's in a Spielberg movie or this, she's always given it her all. She's a great actress.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then he goes to see his girl, his best gal,
Bernie.
Bernie.
Iconic Marvel love interest, Bernie. I don't think they even give her a last name. That's all she needs is Bernie. But I think that's pretty good that she couldn't even make it to his going away party because she was too sad to see him go. If you have 5 seconds to establish a romance, that's not a bad way to do it. And so
that's one thing I want to comment on real quick. Just I mean, again, I do respect the breakneck speed in which it gets through all this dumb shit in the beginning, but like in particular when after he limps towards Bernie and finds her on the beach, to have the little moment, it's really, really fast. Like literally Andy's not lying when it's like about 5 seconds to establish this like relationship, and she's like, oh Steve, I'm gonna miss you and I love you so much, and then they just start macking. Like there's like absolutely no tension, no build up, no nothing. It's just straight up just that, and then he's like seeing her off. That's it.
If this is like a real movie, right? And this is as much like a real movie. if this was a real movie, she'd be on the pier at some carnival game that he won her a toy at. And he'd walk up behind her slowly, and he'd be like, I never thought that when I, walked on this pier that I'd meet you, and I'd know my whole life was ahead of me, or some shit like, you know what I mean? Like it'd be like that.
Exactly.
But they don't have that. Like they don't have they don't have the time. They don't like. It's Albert Pyun. This is the director of Doll Man. We're getting to the fucking point in this thing.
And we do
next speed. I love it.
In 15 minutes into the movie, we're already at the freaking operation.
Talk about getting to the point. So yada yada yada. He goes to the he goes to the thing. They turn him into Captain America. Who cares? It's exactly what you know it is.
Yeah, the surprise Heil Hitler.
But the best part is like when the guy's like gonna assassinate the doctor. There's no clever plan. He just does the Hitler salute and blasts her in the chest.
Hi,
and,
doctor. Nice to meet you.
So the whole like Captain America like sequence of him becoming the Cap, and then this businessman who's with the lieutenant there that we don't like. There's never established. It's just a guy. He just pulls up with the lieutenant. They go to the secret underground base, and the guy he walks up to the doctor, the Italian doctor who escaped, and has the Captain America like experiment serum or whatever the fuck, and he's just like, "Well, congratulations, doctor, you've done a miracle." And then literally in the same breath, he's like, "Hail Hitler!" and then pulls out a gun and fucking caps her.
Like, there's nothing clever about it at all. Like it's definitely like a suicide mission because it's like he can't possibly think he was going to escape.
That
like
man knew
at least
he had a mission and that was it.
At least the guy in the first Avenger had like a bomb to distract everybody. Like it's like this guy's just like like I'll just blow her away. And so then Captain America like beats him up in classic B movie fashion, tosses him into some vague electronics, and he gets fried. By the way, I would just like to point out. I'm talking about this from memory. I didn't watch this today. I just have this imprinted on my mind.
And see, I just watched it literally, like I said, 20 minutes ago. So like it is fresh in my mind, and everything describing, no, it's exactly what it is. Again, the Looney Tune ass antics of this movie, like punching the guy into a goddamn like electric thing and him just having him like just getting like zapped. It's incredible. I'm like, wow.
I know.
You gotta love it. This is cinema, baby.
Yeah. I would just like to point out, for very future reference, whenever we do the trial of the Incredible Hulk with Daredevil in it, there's the exact same death scene in that, and I just want to call back to it, because god damn it, that's circular storytelling. Anywho, keep continuing forward, because we got to get through this thing. He becomes Captain America. They have that part where he's like in the hospital, and they're like, we don't know if he's even going to survive. And then like they're like, but we need him to like take out this armor camp of Nazis or whatever. And then it just cuts to him standing up. He's like, oh, I'm ready, Doc. I'm ready to do it. And it's just like a not super generic, but pretty generic superhero score. Then it just cuts to him in a prop plane, like a little toy airplane flying through the sky. And he's in army green and just the Captain America suit. No explanation at all. And I love the fucking like dialogue of like establishing everything, because like they're in the plane and he's like, oh, like the doctor designed the suit, and he's like, well, she didn't know much about camouflage, did he? He's like, nah, but she sure did love America. And then he's like, so when is there going to be more of me? He's like, she had all of the details for this written down in her head, not like on paper. He's like, so that you're it. He's like, get out there. They're not going to draw any blood. They're not going to like experiment on him. They're not going to try and like replicate it. Just like, go into enemy territory. It's fine. So he jumps out of the plane while screaming, I love you, Bernie. And then as like a little toy soldier on a parachute that you would get from a freaking like 99-cent store, falls down into, I'm assuming, just like the hills of California where they shot this, doubling as Europe. And he knocks over some toy guard stands, like he set like a truck on fire or something, and then he goes and fights the Red Skull.
Yeah, we're like 20 minutes in now.
We are not playing. This movie is quick. I love it because it said, fuck all, this is a dumbass movie. You already know it. You're here for this cape shit. Here you go, nerds. We're getting to the fucking action.
Yeah, but then you get to see the Red Skull.
He's great.
And the Red Skull is pretty good.
Yeah.
For the budget they have, I will say this: this movie again is made with 2 sticks and some pig shit, but like it in certain areas, They do utilize the budget in a pretty decent way. Red Skull looks corny, like it looks hokey, but it doesn't look bad, if that makes sense. Like he looks very silly, but they pull it off. You know what I mean?
Should I whip out the flaming hot take and just be like, I think the Red Skull design of this is better than the first Avenger, simply because they scar the hell out of him and make him like blind in one eye. It gives more definition to what's going on with the model, rather than just have like fucking flat Hugo Weaving, basically.
It's like
he looks like a tumor,
and it's rough too. Like it's like got like all the slime all over it, so it looks like it's like, you know how when you cut your hand and then like when it initially starts to scab over, there's just like a little bit of like I don't even know what it would be called, but just like body like fluid that's forming. Yeah, like it looks like there's a consistent membrane on this guy's head because the fucking Nazis just fried the hell out of him trying to turn him into a super soldier. It looks like a monster. I completely agree with you, Martin.
This is how every Italian looks when you crack spaghetti in front of them.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks good, and I will say like the set for like whether it's the Captain America like secret lab where they turn him into it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look bad. And in fact, I can actually see where the first Avenger got a lot of inspiration from because it looks pretty good. And then when we get to Red Skull, like even though Captain America looks goofy as shit, Red Skull again is silly, but like I think he looks great. I think they really sell it. Like for the pulpiness of it, he looks kind of like gross, like we're describing. He looks like a fucking tumor.
And you know what? Since Martin dropped his hot take, I'll drop mine. The Captain America suit, not terrible except for the eye holes. And from far away, I think it looks fine. Like it fits. Like you could put him right alongside Lou Ferrigno's Hulk and like Nicholas Hammond's Spider-Man. It fits totally. You know what I mean? Like it's goofy. It's right out of the comics, but it's not like horrible or anything. Like it's just the eye holes are terrible because he can't, like, it's covering like most of his nose and half of his eyes. Like I don't even know how he sees. But like, if the mask was different, I think it'd be totally acceptable. The guy looks like he's sweating his ass off in there. Like it looks like he's wearing a tie.
It just looks like they put like latex directly on his skin without any like sealant or anything.
Yeah, I know. Like it basically, like you can just feel his nuts sweating, like in every fucking like. This ain't like a fucking major motion picture where they have like cooling tubes through it and they're like pumping cold water through it. You can go. Oh, J.D. Salinger's son was just sweating, was just losing poundage every day in sweat in this stupid thing. He looks fine. So the Red Skull straps him to also cool line. I like where he beats up Captain America in front of all the Nazis, and then he turns around and he says, like, pity him. He is like a child. Like he's trying to earn their approval. I like that.
Yeah.
I'll care for a moment.
Me too.
And then he straps him to a rocket in true Golden Age fashion. And it's so because the way Captain America
Looney Tunes ass shenanigans.
The way Captain America gets out of it, he's like, hey, I gotta tell you something. Like right as it's about to like take off, he's like, I gotta tell you something. And he like leans in and he just grabs his hand but he has a good line where he's like, two could travel cheaply as one, you sick bastard. Like, and he says bastard. Like, he's like, you sick bastard. And so then like the Red Skull tries to cut off. This is no time for holding hands. He tries to cut off his Captain America's hand, and then Captain America literally goes, "Not my hand!" Pulls it closer, and he accidentally cuts off his own hand. So, there's a cool shot where the rocket is taking off, and you see the Red Skull screaming as like the like in full, like, again, Golden Age fashion. So they're going to shoot this rocket at the White House, but Captain America manages to kick the wings of it. Like to get
literally, please talk about this.
Okay, but before we get to that, there's a kid that's just moved to Washington, D.C. that's just so excited to see the president's house that he sneaks out in his
mind that he's in Washington, D.C.
You know what? It was the 40s. Like Little Orphan Annie had ended at 8:30, and he didn't have anything to do until 8 in the morning when he ate oatmeal. Like all this kid had to do. So he's taking a picture of the White House. Then he turns around and he sees a fucking rocket coming at him. Keeps taking pictures, and then Captain America looks. He's like, "Oh no, there's a little boy!" Like as if like blowing up the White House wasn't bad enough. Like this is his motivation. So he picks the wings of the rocket hard enough to get it to like fly back into the sky. And it just takes him all the way to like the Antarctic, and that's how he freezes.
I think we need to like really emphasize, just to paint the visual for everyone listening. He is strapped back first to this rocket, so he's laying on his back on this Looney Tunes ass rocket, and as he gets Wile E. Coyote shot up into the sky again at the White House, before he like kills little Timmy, he is kicking his feet in a way where he's just tapping his the back of his heels like on it, and he's just like doing that hard enough apparently where it makes the rocket somehow just swoop up and miss not only the little boy but also the White House, and he lands him in Alaska, and it just instead of blowing up, it just skids through the snow, and then he just hits his big ass snow mound like he just came off of a fucking toboggan, and the snow falls on him, and that's how he freezes.
That's how he freezes. Yeah, I just want to say I love the effect that instead of like having the ship arrive like kind of from like horizontally through the camera or whatever, they have it coming straight at you, but there's nothing in the sky, and then you just see it pop in. It's like, oh, it's the effect. It's great.
Yeah, it's so perfect. But then so then he gets frozen, and then the world moves on for 50 years, and we get a great little montage of just newspapers flying at the screen
constantly,
which is exactly how you do exposition in movies this cheap. So then the plot just kind of like meanders for a while. The only thing we should point out is the little boy who
becomes Jimmy Carter.
Grows up to be the president of the United States.
He literally Jimmy Carter.
Tom Kimball, who I can't believe I remember that, but Tom Kimball, who's totally not Jimmy Carter, even though he looks exactly like him, and his whole thing is based on like Greenpeace and like saving the planet. Like,
that's all I could think about the whole time watching him. Like, Jesus Christ, he's even got his like fishy lips. It's so weird.
No, like at first, I'm gonna be honest with you, that whole sequence when they're doing like the exposition dump of like the newspaper, I didn't know what the fuck was going on at first. I was just like, who the fuck is Kimball? Why should I care? Who is this? And then when it just hits the gut punch of like he's the president, and like the first thing he does is like recreating or spoofing, if you will, like Jimmy Carter's like speech. He's just like, well, we're gonna have to tighten our belts, you see, and it's gonna hurt. It's medicine, and we're gonna have to take it. But if we don't, we're gonna die. You know what I mean? It's just the thing, the famous speech that lost Jimmy Carter the election against Reagan. Like.
Yeah, exactly. And so like he's like, look, I'm going to spend taxpayer dollars to put solar panels on there, and then the Red Skull is on the White House, and the Red Skull's like, we have to kill him, like we have to take him out. But this is literally a plot that would be in like a 60s Captain America comic.
Sure.
Am I not wrong? Like in a Stan Lee freaking Captain America, Stanley air quotes, Captain America comic, like it would totally be like, yeah, like they're gonna take out the president because he's trying to like protect the ozone layer.
Right.
Like that's what it would. Stanley literally wrote in a character called the Hate Monger into the Fantastic Four, who takes off his hood and it's just Hitler. So like, this is not beyond like what was being done in Marvel Comics at the time. And honestly, that stuff's smarter than what was being done in Marvel Comics in the 90s, but that's beside the point. So. Then Captain America gets broken out of the ice, like by literally bursting from it, which I think is kind of cool. And then he like
very weirdly John Carpenter's The Thing almost.
Oh yeah.
What is this? It's just a human hand sticking out.
It's very eerie.
Yeah, and then he like I do like how the shot of like where he's leaving the tent and you just barely see him leave. Like he's like a cryptid. Like that's kind of cool. When the one dude's like, no way that just happened. And so then like it gets put on the news. The president and then a friend that he's shared this stuff with back in the day see it, and they're like, "Oh my god!" Like
it's him.
The dude from the rocket is back. He's wearing a hat with like wings on it, so it must be the same guy.
It was the letter A. It was the letter A. He said the guy with the letter A.
Because no one's ever worn the letter A on their head before or after. So the president gets a call from his friend, who's played by Ned Beatty, who's now a reporter, which I didn't really realize that childhood friends could just call the president direct at the Oval Office.
No, that's one thing I love too. It's like, imagine being that friend. He's just like, he's overweight. He's like working this like messy ass desk in this like, I forget the name of the newspaper, but then it's like, imagine being him and then your best friend's the fucking president. Like,
yeah. Well, also, like, imagine being a reporter, having a direct line to the president, and still writing shit-ass conspiratorial articles, like, for a dump-ass like, local paper. Like, how the fuck, like, like you're a journalist and you know the president like personally. How do you not like maneuver that into like something a little more with a little more clout? I guess this is Otis from Superman 78. So what do we expect?
Well, then what happens afterwards? Who does he go see in California?
Well, okay, so no, okay, so we can't do that yet
because we're missing the stupid biker guys or whatever.
So he basically runs to Canada from the Antarctic. He just runs all the way home.
Wait. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We can't skip the return of Red Skull in the modern era.
It's now more like the Orange Skull because he's had plastic surgery because the makeup was too expensive for this. So now he just looks like Boris Karloff with Jigsaw from Punisher season 2 scars on his face, and he has like Donald Trump's sprint hand.
And he's going by his pre Red Skull name. I can't remember the first part, but his last name is like what was it?
DeSantis.
I think it's literally DeSantis. Little Rhonda, Red Skull, sanctimonious.
And he's basically
he doesn't
like
look great, folks. He looks terrible.
Is he wearing heels in his shoes, or is that just Captain America?
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Why is that Captain America costume? Why does he have heels?
His name is literally DeSantis. I just want to point this out. I'm looking at the IMDb right now. The character's name is DeSantis.
You think I'm playing? No, that was one thing that like stood out to me when like watching this like an hour ago. It's just like, is his name DeSantis?
Yeah,
Little Red Rhonda.
Time is a flat circle.
In all fairness, nobody knew who Ron DeSantis was at this time because he was back in college arguing with his professors over every little thing at this time in 1990, just challenging his professors on every basic historical fact that he was being taught
when he got home.
Yeah, exactly.
I do love though, like right before we get that. So the whole impetus of why we get reintroduced to Red Skull or Little Red DeSantis is because seriously gives that speech like we got to tighten our belts, see. And then the general comes in, he's just like, Mr. President, I'll do the clear. I'll say we can't cut back on this waste here products. We can't cut back in 6 months. And then there's a really good line where not Jimmy Carter's like, so you want to make a deal, huh? And then the general's just like, well, yes, sir. And then he says something like, well, go buy a used Toyota. Like some shit like that, which I really enjoyed. But it's so funny because they're having this conversation, having this back and forth, and Jimmy Carter's like, all right, now fuck off. And then he's just like, I do hope you have a safe trip in Rome now, Mr. President. And then it's a hard cut to, again, Little Red DeSantis and these like business moguls, like in this evil Illuminati ass like room. And then they're basically like, how do we murder the fucking president? Like, how do we assassinate him?
Don't miss a beat.
I should point out, in defense, the general is played by Darren McGavin, who's Kolchak and the dad in A Christmas Story. So when Nick is describing this really cartoony performance, it works because it's Darren McGavin, because he's one of the most comedically expressive actors of his time. Where he's just like, oh, man, like he's like, I want to burn more fossil fuels. Let's find out a way to kill the president. Like,
and I do love, in particular, so like Red Skull's whole thing is just like, because they go down a list of like his accomplishments, because it's basically the Illuminati, and then they're just like, we took out Kennedy, we took out Robert, we took out Martin Luther King, like just going through like, oh yeah, all that shit we did. Like now we're gonna kill Jimmy Carter because he wants to cut back on emissions.
Well, okay. Yes, so that sets the plot in motion, and by plot, I'm being very generous. But like, so Captain America runs to Canada, and then he's chased by 90s bikers, and then he's rescued by Ned Beatty. And then Ned Beatty tells him what year he's in, and then Captain America says to Ned Beatty, I'm going to throw up. Can you pull over the car? He's like, yeah, sure. And then he like runs away, like to look like he's going to throw up. And then Ned Beatty's concerned for him because he's like presumably trying to help him because he's a nice guy. And then as soon as he gets to him, he's like, Captain, are you okay? He just turns around and runs and steals the car. Like, this is his plan, is to like pretend to throw up and then steal the car. And like, Ned Beatty, great guy, not in the best shape, great actor, but like,
just left him in the wilds of Canada.
Yeah, he literally left him on the side of the road in a foreign country, like this, like at least 60-year-old man, like, and he's just
This portly 6-year-old man.
There are nice touches in this movie where there's a part where Captain America is like disoriented and he's in the passenger seat and the guy's like describing to him. He's like, there's the Illuminati. They killed all these people through the 60s, through the 80s, blah, 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 blah. And Captain America is like looking at like the car brand and then he's looking at like the tape recorder brand and they're both Japanese products. Mm-hmm. And you see him like start to look like kind of nervous and like kind of like kind of be on it.
The same way too.
In his mind, the war is still going on.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of like I just think that's like an interesting touch.
Yeah. It's
like,
nice.
I want to comment on that because I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that was, it's just very funny. We had that goofy ass scene of him, stealing the car, because right before that, I think it's a really well done sequence when, the guy's explaining to him like everything that's going on, and Captain, he does a pretty good job of like being disoriented and like being just kind of fish out of water, like the fuck is going on, processing all this information. And I thought that was a really clever touch to look at like the car they're driving. He notices it's a fucking Volkswagen, and then he looks at the tape recorder that the guy's playing the exposition on, and it's a Japanese tape recorder. You know what I mean? So like to Andy's point, Cap is still in the war. You know what I mean? He's trying to take in all this information, and he's just like, okay, I'm clearly in like an Axis spy's car. I need to figure out what to do. And his brilliant plan on the spot was, I'm going to pretend to be sick, and I'm going to run back and steal the car.
Well, because Axis spies are notoriously overweight and elderly. Yes, like those are the spies that they use in war. I love Ned Beatty. No disrespect. Anywho, so Captain America runs out of gas. Then he hitches a ride on like a fucking like shipping container, goes all the way back to California, and then the most 90s song imaginable is playing as he's like running around LA.
And I just want to say, I was cracking the fuck up when the two edgy goth kids or whatever walk out to like, hey man, you got a cigarette? And he's like, oh, and then it cuts to him like running away from them.
Hey! Hey, bud. You got a cigarette?
He's running away, and then he sees the blonde.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like the blonde chick like wearing like kind of like the skimpy 90s outfit that they never would have worn in the 40s, and she's got like her big ass hanging out, and he like looks at her, he's like all scared and runs away. He's like, whoa! he's like, this is our superhero. But again, cool points. He goes to the pier and he sees where they carve their name into the pier, and it's still there. And Matt Salinger does a pretty good job of like being scared, where he's like rubbing his head and he's doing like all the B movie like tropes of just like, oh, like where am I? It's just the fact that they have him running away from like a Sports Illustrated model and like two Return of the Living Dead cast members is like not helpful. But I even like the song. I looked it up at the end of the movie today because I was scrubbing through it today. It's by Barry Goldberg. I looked it up on YouTube. You cannot find it anywhere. It's not released. By the way, every single on this, there's 3 singles that are on this in this movie. They're all by Barry Goldberg. So I don't know. He must be friends with Albert Pyun, a la Tom Kimball and Ned Beatty. But he's like, I can't find the song anywhere. I can only find it in this movie, but it's like total like 90s. It's like, all I know is what my heart keeps saying.
Then all I know is what my heart keeps saying. Memories of you, girl.
But then there's a pretty good shot of him running down, like it's a big wide shot.
Down
it's
the street,
down a California street, just terrified. And like, what's great about this, and so I was watching this scene, I was like, I gotta mention this to the guys tonight. All the Marvel movies we're stuck with now, like they're all against green screens. They're all in these hyper comic book worlds. They're all in like, everything's like sort of stylized. And there's nothing wrong with that because we've gotten to the point where movies can look like comics a little bit more now. Mm-hmm. But there is something to be said about seeing a person in a superhero outfit on an otherwise completely normal street. Yep. It's like when Christopher Reeve lands in Metropolis and it's just New York. And it's like, oh, this is Superman in 1970s America. Whereas like, I'm not gonna give that much credit to this movie, but seeing a guy in a Captain America uniform just running around SoCal, like that's like honestly kind of refreshing now that we're in like just constant CGI land.
Yeah, no, definitely just running down the streets of Redondo Beach.
And honestly, honestly like very very like fitting in because we failed to mention Cap is still in his Captain America outfit, but he has like this gray trench coat over it. So all you really see is like he has his coat on, and then you see his like red bottoms. Like he just has these like red heeled like these red boots, these bright red ass boots, and he's just like running around with his like little knapsack. So he looks like a homeless person, which is very relevant for when the movie picks up because what does he do as he's playing this very on the nose 90s ass song? He's heading home. He's going like, Bernie, I gotta find Bernie. I gotta go find her, see if she's still there waiting for me. As the lyrics of the song are literally like, going back home where they still gonna be where I remember, like shit like that.
And so then I was going to mention, like, he's running around in a Captain America uniform in the streets of, as you said, like, Southern California. He just looks like someone that's gotten kicked out of Frankensons. Like, that's what he looks like. And so it makes sense that when he goes to the house and his long-lost love, her daughter shows up, and he's like, he gets a flashback to Bernie. He's like, oh, Bernie, this yeah, like I haven't heard somebody talk about Bernie this much since I was talking politics with Nick in 2020. Like, so he's like, he sees him, like, oh, Bernie, and he like tries to give her a hug, and she's like, get off of me, creep, and she punches him with like a 6-pack of beer and knocks him over. So this is a superhero that's not only scared of goth teenagers, a woman with a big ass, but also gets beat up by a tiny little lady with a 6-pack in her hands. Like, truly,
Captain America throws his mighty shields.
All those with Budweiser from the store will not yield because he gets his ass. And so then she's like, Mom, this creep just tried to jump me. And so then the mom comes out, and it is the actress that played Bernie in like comical old woman makeup.
We're talking gray hair.
Still more convincing than the CG age they did on Cher, on what was her face, and Haley Atwell in Civil War. Still more convincing than that.
You know what? I was just watching The Winter Soldier the other day just to have it on in the background, but like I got that scene. Winter Soldier's a good movie. That scene with Haley Atwell, good scene, but my God, the old age makeup is like pretty rough.
Yeah,
and you're right. This does look better, but she looks like if you tried to make like like Marissa Tomei's Aunt May look like Rosemary Harris's Aunt May. It's like a white old lady wig on her, and
you can see like the spearmint gum they used on her face a little bit.
And then she's married to an actual old man, like which is I guess kind of completes the effect. But it's like, so then she just takes him in, and he's drinking milk in her kitchen, gobbling, just. I mean, you guys were talking about him being soy or whatever. Like he's just down in the milk.
He's down in that milk, and she's just like, "I hate you seeing me this way." He goes like, "Oh, Bertie, you're still as beautiful as I remember." And I'm just,
I was really waiting for the husband in this whole thing because he gets out ready to beat some ass. Like when we first like open the door, he's like, "Oh, my daughter's being accosted by a homeless man. Let me go like step up," and then like. Instantly his wife is just completely cucks him because she's just like, oh, my long lost love, like instantly takes him in with open arms and like recognizing him after thinking he's dead for like fucking 40 years, and then like he's just cool with him just being in the kitchen drinking her milk and like just embracing each other and having a moment.
In all fairness, she must have still thought he had polio, so that's probably what the husband thought, and that's why he's like, well, I can't beat up a guy with polio that my daughter has.
But I can't let him fuck my wife.
Actually, they're in this whole scene when they're like embracing each other in the kitchen. The husband's he's just in the cuck chair in the corner. He's just like watching them.
He's in his easy chair, and he's just like, oh God. He's like, this was the guy that was laying polio pipe to my wife in 1944. He's like, why couldn't this guy be in an iron lung right now? And he's just like, why did he have to become the hero of America?
Oh my God, I'm hurting.
This is the only version of Captain America that you legitimately don't have to worry about stealing your girl.
I just
like if this guy shows up and is talking to your girl, you'd be like, whatever. I can knock him out with a Pepsi can.
I just got 2 points to make. Number one, when I was watching this movie for the first time in 15 years, I texted the group chat and said, Captain America really wants that gummy granny gluck gluck. And then I followed that up
I'm gonna get gummed up.
You're gonna get gummed up. And then I followed that with a thought in my head of like, man, Captain America's like the only superhero who would be age appropriate to do like gilf porn for.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, he's walking around, he's just shocked to see your ankles.
Right.
He's like, my God, you're so indecent. It's like, everyone can see your varicose veins, Bernie. You whore.
Bernie, you've been slutted out. What happened?
Oh my God.
So, what really happens after this? Like, he just kind of reconnects with Bernie. Then he kind of like starts hanging out with her daughter, who looks like Pat Benatar.
Yep.
And then, because she's just got that like freaking hairsprayed late '80s fucking "We Are Strong" like fucking hairdo. Like, no one can tell us we're wrong.
Basically, the plot moves actually pretty quick. So like to kind of jump through it real fast. Basically, so yeah, reconnects. He's hanging out with her daughter at her apartment, and then that's when Ned Beatty and the president are trying to like figure out, and they're like, hey, like if I can find some dirt on this guy, maybe we can crack the secrets to it. And he's like, all right, whatever you say, Ned. Anyway, I'm gonna go to Rome. I got a meeting to do a G summit. And then that's when they spring the plan to action, because we cut back to Little Red DeSantis, and he's just like his daughter, who is just like this, like just random, conventionally attractive, young woman. And he's just like, I need you to go kill him. And then she's just like, I'm on it, Dad. And then that's when we have that sequence in the beginning with like the fucking BMX bikes and the shootout in the woods in Canada. So then her, along with her ragtag group of like both equally generic as hell, but also like just conventionally attractive like Italians, just like in normal street clothes, they just go running around just like Long Beach, like with a gun, being like, where is Captain America? And they eventually find Bernie's place, and then they just put a cap in like everybody in there. They shoot they shoot the husband, they shoot Bernie, they like just unload on everybody, because Ned Beatty shows up, and he's just like, I'm looking for Captain America. And as he's like in midway of explaining, he gets fucking domed in the back. So like they just have a big shootout, and then that's when Cap and her daughter show up. They have that emotional moment of seeing Bernie get fucking sewed up in the body bag, and from there, that's when they're like, all right, we got to go after him. We got to figure out what's going on, because at that same time, the news breaks and the president's been kidnapped in Rome. And then that's when we jump over, and Red Skull explains his Manchurian plot, attempt on the president. If you want to take it away, Andy.
Well, I would just like to point out I have a personal story about that scene where Ned Beatty shows up to Bernie's house looking like he needs to take a shit and then getting killed. Like, when I was younger, and by that I mean like 10, I used to be really afraid of the dark. So I would have movies playing on in my room the entire night. I would just put on the sleep timer. So I had this on at night, and there's the part where Pat Benatar comes home and sees like Bernie and her dad and Ned Beatty have all been murdered, and she's like screaming her head off. She's like, no. So I was playing that at like 3 a.m, and I remember my dad running into my room thinking I was screaming because I had it on too loud. And he's like, what the hell is going on in here? I'm like, I'm watching Captain America. Poor dude had to lose some sleep because Captain America 1990 was on in my room.
Killed Bernie.
Yeah. So anyway, so Captain America and Pat Benatar fly to Rome. They're driving around in a tiny little, like, friggin' bug car.
Little Fiat.
And then, yeah. So then they go and find some old antique store where they find a tape that was playing of the Red Skull when he was captured by the Nazis. And they hear him as a kid being like, no, don't take me away and turn me into a tomato testicle. No. And so he's like, we find that. And then Captain America decides it's too dangerous for the rock star he's hanging out with, so he pretends to throw up again. Yes. But this time, he's stranded in a country that doesn't even speak English.
This is called Chekhov's gun, everybody.
You literally...
Okay, speaking of Chekhov's gun, we're just going to skip ahead a little bit. Don't you think by the giant Red Skull rat that's at the beginning, you would have that come back at the end with a giant Red Skull rat that Captain America would fight?
Oh my God,
but no, that doesn't
stop motion or whatever, and he's just like fighting with the shield.
Yeah, if this was a full moon movie, that would have happened.
Yes, it
but
would
then the whole thing would have taken place in Rome because Charles Band grew up in Italy.
Did you know he grew up in Italy?
Yeah, Charles Band, please hire us. Anyway,
please.
Yeah. Basically, like, not much happens after that. He just turns into Captain America, goes to the castle. The president is being like led to whatever the Red Skull needs him for. He's like, "You really need me for your plan, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I do." So then he's like, "Well, then it won't work." And he like flings himself over the edge, which admirable. But like Captain America catches him, and then he like pulls him in, and then he's like, "We've met before." He's like, "You have?" And the president pulls out his wallet, which terrorists haven't taken the president's wallet from him. There might be something kind of valuable in there, I guess. But he shows him the picture of him, and Captain America goes, "You were the little boy?" And like as if Captain America could see him going
again.
10,000 miles an hour.
He was strapped backwards. So he would be like head facing like down. Yeah. As he's like barreling towards his boy, strapped to this rocket again at like 10,000 miles an hour.
Little boy.
Yeah. So he's like, "Oh wow!" And then, but then there's a great little Christopher Reeve moment where he goes, "Gee whiz!" Like, and then like he goes, and so also I like the part. This is just a little good part that I like, where Captain America and Jimmy Carter, he tells Jimmy Carter, he's like, "Trust me." He's like, "You're not getting a second term. Just go hide in the rocks, like in the caves underneath this." And he's like, and then he goes. But the president, he's like, "Are you kidding me? I'm not running out on Captain America." That's like right out of a comic. I'm like, as a kid, I'm like, "Yeah," and like as an adult, I'm like, "Yeah," like it's just great. So then the Captain America and this 58-year-old like vegan president.
Oh, no. Yeah, like, we were talking about Red Skull.
No. I was talking about like the president, this dude who's like weighs like maybe 115 pounds, like is like fighting all these terrorists, and then they go and find so Captain America, Jimmy Carter, Pat Benatar, and Ron DeSantis all converge on the top of this castle, and along with Ron DeSantis's generic-looking full moon features actress daughter, and the Red Skull's like playing a piano, which is awesome.
Yes,
that's a great touch. There's just a big piano on top of a thing, and then he's just acting his orange heart out, where he's like "I lay our tortured souls to rest," and he has like basically a TV remote that he says can set off a nuclear bomb. He's like, and Captain America can do nothing to stop it. I'm like, I'm pretty sure Captain America could just come and get you. Like, there's nobody around. He's got like Pat Benatar's like fighting a lady. Like it's whatever. Like it's a '90s movie. But then Captain America distracts. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he distracts him because as he, he's giving that big speech about we're two ghosts out of time. You know what I mean? And now I'm gonna lay our souls to rest. So what does Cap do? He again, the callback is this real fucking movie. He plays the recording from that old antique shop they found of, for some reason that family was recording way back in the 40s when he was being abducted by the fucking Mussolini fascists. And he plays.
Yes. He was playing a piano.
Okay, that's right. Okay, he's playing the piano for his lessons. So they're recording that. Okay, yeah, makes sense. So then he plays that recording. So then Little Red DeSantis hears his family getting mowed down, and then that understandably puts him in like a PTSD shock as he's like remembering everything, and he's just having this moment where he's just like looking around, like, like I'm not really sure what they were going for it, but he was reminiscing, and that's when that gives Captain America just enough time to be like to sneak. Like we keep cutting back and forth between Little Red DeSantis like wandering around like Joe Biden, just like looking around and being like sent back to 1940, and the Captain America just cuts to him.
There's like 4 different presidents in this thing.
And then Captain America's just like sneaking, like over, like red light, green light, sneaking over to his shield, and then he's like, "All right, finally got it." And then he tosses it and hits Little Red DeSantis.
Yeah, and Ron DeSantis gets hit by the Party City Captain America shield, and then turns into a mannequin that's falling off the cliff, and you just hear him go, "Oh!"
And then his
way down.
And not only do we see like the fucking rag doll falling off, and then his Red Skull's daughter pops up and she's just like standing there for like a solid 10 seconds staring at the camera. I'm like, she's supposed to do something, and then she holds up a Uzi, and then of course it's Captain America's shield, so it boomerangs back, and on the way back hits her and knocks her off. She ragdolls off the cliff.
Well, here's the thing. It comes back, and Captain America goes, heads up, and she turns around, and then it just cuts to it hitting her, and then it cuts to it landing in his hand. So presumably it decapitated her. Like if it kept,
That's right. Yeah.
going. Like
He's just
cut
like,
her in
yeah.
half. Cut her in half like Captain Carter in Doctor Strange 2.
Wow, what a
Yeah,
what a reference.
they don't even.
Yeah.
They don't even show her like getting fucking Looney Tunes off the cliff.
they should've.
It literally just we're supposed to assume she was beheaded, and he's just making a quip on it.
But then he does the Christopher Reeve where he turns and looks right in the camera, but the difference is he's not flying above the earth. There's just like blue sky behind him, and he just looks down into the camera, like, and he just kind of gives a look like, and then keeps walking. And then so he like so basically like friggin' the Italian, police force shows up, rescues Jimmy Carter, and then Captain America and Pat Benatar live happily ever after. But then, like, it just cuts to Captain America randomly just looking in the camera again, and it goes up to his face with the heroic music playing. As you can see, the poorly cut out eye holes of the latex on there is like it's so bad.
And then the Captain America with the little R copyright symbol comes up, and you're just like, yeah.
Well, like Ezra Miller had a better cowl in The Flash than this Captain America does. So, but then it cuts to just a picture of Captain America, like a publicity still, and then they have like a little voiceover where it's like Jimmy Carter saved the Earth and the ozone layer is fine. But then it says like at the end, it says, and he ended with this odd message. To Captain America, wherever he is, we're all back in the fight. And then the 90s music starts up again. It turns into like a freaking generic ass like drawing of Captain America.
I love the narrator because he's just like, he left a strange message to this Captain America. And it's like, yeah, no one knows who the fuck that is.
Yeah. Well, also, can you imagine the president just like, well, I mean, I guess Joe Biden does it all the time.
Imagine like Joe Biden just like, and I sent this message out to Captain America. And you're just like, yeah, okay, fine.
To Corn Pop, wherever he is, we're all back in the fight. Like, my legs are just as hairy as ever.
To Fruit Brute and Count Chocula. Give this message.
Exactly. Excuse me while I trip over a podium and wander the wrong way. And by the way, if you think I'm talking about Joe Biden, I'm not. I'm talking about Tom Kimball of the Captain America.
Oh my god.
Oh man!
I think the most shocking thing I had watching this movie again was realizing that Jimmy Carter is still alive. I legitimately thought he had died already. So,
No.
Thanks, Captain America.
Yeah, it should have. Any guy who fights alongside Captain America is going to last forever. But okay, I'm not trying to make any predictions here, but Fox will be fucking dead. This episode goes on.
Fuck.
Oh my god!
Yeah, yeah, they should have ended with like fucking like Tom Kimball like building habitats for humanity or something. So, anyway, what's the ridiculous plot of this movie? It's fucking great. What are your guys' thoughts on it?
You take it away, Marty.
On just the film itself, I think I had... Okay, I'll be honest. I think I had more fun recounting the film than I did actually watching it. Having said that, it is better than I remember it being. It is a solid $3 million Captain America movie made in 1990. For what it is a pretty solid movie. I love how earnest it feels. This feels like a movie. There is a complete narrative that happens, and it ends, and it feels like a satisfying enough film to watch. It's something that I miss in this genre sometimes, you know? And Matt Salinger, J.D. Salinger's kid, he's great, I thought, as Captain America. I thought he was really good for the time period this film came out. I thought he was great. I thought he did a great job acting through that fucking funny costume.
Yeah. He would have been great as like Hal Jordan in like 1993.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know. He was great.
Whatever.
Whatever they would throw him in. Yeah, he was great. I thought the whole cast I thought was pretty okay for what they needed to be. Ned Beatty was fun for his 10 minutes. Ronnie Cox as Jimmy Carter was my favorite highlight of the movie, just because I couldn't get that out of my head. So Yeah, I really had I had a good time revisiting the movie. I'm happy with it. This has changed my perspective on it because I just have that memory of being like 13 watching, be like, this is fucking boring, and now watching, be like, oh, this is so refreshing.
Martin, you cannot love full moon movies as
I
much
know.
as you do and like, not enjoy this.
No, yeah,
'Cause this
that's
is
the
like
thing. Because like if I watched a full moon movie when I was like a little kid, yeah, I was bored out of my mind. Now that I watch it as an adult, I'm like, these are fucking fun. And it's the same thing with this. This is like, yeah, this is the canon films Captain America. How could I not have a good time with this?
okay, like because I don't think Nick's seen it, but like Martin, is this better or worse than Superman 4?
I would say better. I think it's a better film overall. Superman 4, I think, is more entertaining, but I think this is a better
Yeah.
film than Superman 4.
Yeah, I mean, I put Superman 4 above it just because Christopher Reeve is in it, but yes,
Sure.
this is like a more complete film than
There's a more complete narrative, I think, overall. There is a stronger emotional core, I think, throughout the movie.
yeah, this actually makes me kind of wonder like what that canon Spider-Man would have looked like. Like
Sure.
maybe it would have been better than it sounded. But yeah, Nick, what were your thoughts on this as the guy who just watched it a half hour ago at 20, in your mid 20s instead of being 10?
Well, I can definitely relate to Martin a little bit, where it felt like a breath of fresh air in a way, just compared to a lot of like the other cape shit schlock we get nowadays. So in I think the biggest takeaway and why I had a more positive reaction to it than I thought is just as Marty said, it's earnest. This is a sincere film. It's a film that embraces how fucking stupid and goofy this cape shit is, and they don't shy from it. They don't try to do the fucking fourth wall camera break of like, isn't this fucking stupid, wink wink. Like they just embrace it. They're like, this is silly, we made this on a shoestring budget, but god damn it, we're making it and we're going for it and we're just embracing it. I think that sincerity and that earnestness of it really shined through, and that gave it a lot of charm in my book. I think that despite the constrained budget, they make it work, like I said, in at least areas. Like there are areas of it where I'm like, this looks really bad, and then the other areas where I'm like, you know what, wow, that looks pretty good. Like the set design of the lab where Captain America becomes Captain America, that looks really good. Again, I can't get out of my head, like the first Avenger team, the creative team on that had to have looked at that and taken inspiration, because it looks uncanny. It looks just like it, and so in aspects of that, or honestly, like the Red Skull design in the beginning, like there's places where they did put what little budget they have towards it, and I think it really works. So overall, I really enjoyed it. I actually do want to make a note, because it really felt a shift when I was watching this. The first 10 minutes of it, on one hand, I do love how breakneck it is. Like, we're not going to waste any time. We're just going to get right to the fucking point. Like, this is dumb comic book shit. You're here for the ride. Let's just go. So on that point, I respect it. But it is kind of corny. Like, not even kind of, it is very corny. Like, again, from the design of everything to just how fucking ridiculous it is, to the like Acme ass like rocket sequence, so to the president, like it's all hokey as shit. But I thought the whole movie was going to be like that. Like I was like, okay, this is fun, but I'm like, ugh, I don't know if I can sit through like an hour and a half of this. I honestly really, really enjoyed the shift when it jumps forward to the 90s. I thought it was a really cool transition. I like the plot. I like the plot of them being like, Jimmy Carter's trying to, do his Jimmy Carter thing. They're like, let's fucking, the Illuminati's going to assassinate the president. Like, I love the business plot that they like use, but instead of Roosevelt, it's like Jimmy Carter stand-in. You know what I mean? So I actually was really engaged at that point. And I was just like, okay, this is an interesting direction. I wasn't expecting them to do the whole like, shadow government, the generals in on it with all these business tycoons, and the Red Skull is like a hitter. He's taking out all these guys who were standing for peace and whatnot in like the 60s and 80s and all that. Like, I don't know. It's a classic, as Andy said, it was a classic kind of Saturday night cartoon like plot, but it was more mature than I think, or not even mature, but it was more interesting, I should say, than I was expecting to come out of a film like this, especially based on the first 10 minutes. So I do like the direction that it took after the intro sequence when he gets put on ice, and from there I enjoyed it. It was a fun time. You know what I mean? It is a movie that is sincere and charming, and it's budget as hell, but that's where you'll get these nuggets of greatness, I think.
No, yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that. I do want to add, Albert Pyun was a pretty good, like, he was a dependable journeyman filmmaker in the 80s and 90s, where he would make like these short, sharp, really fun, action adventure kind of films. Like he did Doll Man, which I think is a total blast. It's a mini Tim Thomerson for 75 minutes just shooting up a bunch of fucking people, a bunch of criminals. It's great. He did I think I might have mentioned it in the last episode. Maybe he did a movie called Cyborg in the 90s that was a lot of fun with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Which fucking rocks. It's a great movie. So it's just like he was a really cool, he had a great style to him, and he did a lot of really great action films, I thought, for the time. He defined, I think, a lot of like low budget 90s action films for a lot of people. And hey, I had him on Facebook, and he was a great filmmaker, and it sucks that we'll never see any more from him, but he did a hell of a great job with what he had. And for having only $3 to rub on this fucking movie, he did a great fucking job, I thought.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure this podcast has a higher budget than
honestly.
Than this movie. It's I'm so glad you guys vibed with this, even because I'm still probably the person that likes it the most.
Yes,
but
I probably agree with that.
The fact that everyone can see, and I think anybody in the audience that like kind of picks up what we're putting down and goes and watches this, which by the way, it's free to watch on YouTube. It's like, it is sincere. It's on the lower tier. It's on the lower end of comic book adaptation, pre-2000s comic book adaptations that were genuine shots at this. Because a couple years later, we would get like Steel. That's not a real movie. That's like a Shaq vehicle. You know what I mean? There was no attempt to make like an actual superhero movie at all. Right before this, there was Howard the Duck, which is a big bloated piece of crap that's not even fun to watch, ironically. Like I watched it with friends and it was still unbearable. But this is like very snug, like right below like I would say like John Wesley Shipp's The Flash show, which is better than this. But like it's just John Wesley Shipp's The Flash, that costume is just the Flash costume from the comics. Yeah. This is just the Captain America costume from the comics. The same way Christopher Reeve's Superman costume is exactly the same, or the Spider-Man in the show. It is weird that like in the 70s and 80s and 90s, of all the Marvel characters, it was the Hulk that was done right.
Right.
Like the best.
Which should be probably the most difficult character to achieve.
Yeah, exactly. But like, and we'll probably do a special episode someday on like the Bixby Hulk stuff. We'll certainly cover the telemovies at some point. But like, that's a genuine attempt. And that's like an actor. Those are two great actors giving great performances. And I think if Captain America had been given just a little bit more resources and maybe released in theaters, I think it would be like maybe like a more of a cult classic than it is. Because as it stands, like I think less people have seen this than even like the Dolph Lundgren Punisher.
Right. Well, I mean, it had the same kind of curse that happened with that movie, where it was like it was supposed to have a theatrical release in America, and then the American distributors just pulled out, and it got some international mileage, but not a whole lot. So by the time we saw it out here, it would have to be on like VHS tape or bootleg, honestly. Like at least this one's available on like an illegal American Blu-ray. Granted, it's out of print now, so hey, if you got $30, you can get it. I won't, but you can. It's also on YouTube. But even like the Punisher, the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie, you can't buy like an American printed one. You have to get one from like Australia, basically. And it's just unfortunate where it just, a lot of people missed out on it. And you're right. I feel like this would have been probably an even bigger release had they been given a little bit more resources. Because honestly, it's like, if they had like an extra action sequence with him fighting a giant stop motion Red Skull rat, oh my God, that would have been like the cherry on top. If they added that extra plot line that I thought they were going to go through with like the Red Skull becoming the president of the United States and Captain America's going to fight the president, that would have been great, because they teased the idea just a little bit in the rocket fight, and I'm like, oh, that's such a cool plot line. They don't do it, but it would have been great. I would have been down for that.
Dude, if they would have had Captain America slugging it out with Jimmy Carter on top of the White House on like some like Metal Gear 4 shit, and beating up the president, and then he knocks his like fake mask off and it's a Red Skull underneath it, like that would have been amazing.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people on the right side of the aisle that would champion this for the wrong reasons, because they're like, see, even Captain America hates Jimmy Carter. He beats him up with a solar panel on the roof of the White House. It's just like see, even Captain America hates Jimmy Carter. It's like it would be that. Like,
Now I will say
no,
this movie does have an insane breakneck pace, and it works for the most part, I think. And I do like when it starts to slow down. I was really worried for a second because I have no memory of this movie before rewatching it today. So I really thought when they introduced Red Skull's daughter that they were going to do this whole thing where it's like she's going to try and seduce Captain America, and it's going to be will he go with her? Will he go with a Pat Benatar? Let's find out. And that's how you buy 10 more minutes in your low budget movie, basically.
Yeah, but this is just, it's straight to the point, and it's one of those things where I feel kind of sad that we didn't get more pre-Blade Marvel adaptations, because I would have loved to have seen like another genuine shot at Spider-Man before like the real big budget version. Like obviously everyone would like to see what James Cameron's version would have been, but go back even further and get like who was it that was gonna Joseph Zito and like Toby Hooper were supposed to do Spider-Man movies. Like those could have turned out slightly better than they sound, you know, because The Punisher with Dolph Lundgren is a pretty decent 80s action movie. This is a pretty enjoyable, like Saturday morning cartoon, like Cartoon Network version of Captain America. But like, it's a kids movie, you know, and so I just I'm kind of sad that there weren't more Marvel adaptations of this era, because I think there was potential there, but as it stands, like these are just little like nuggets. It's like this and the Corman Fantastic Four, which I should say, like this is not unfinished the way that the Corman Fantastic Four is. Right. Like you watch the Corman one and you're like, oh my god, like this was meant to keep the rights. This is one where it's like, oh no, they really were going to release this. Like they wanted this to be like a big blockbuster movie. They just spent no money on it.
Oh, Monopoly.
I think this movie so far. I feel like this movie more than or I'd say so far that we talked about with this show, I think this really captures of heroic efforts where it's earnest and it's got a lot of heart and charm, and on a second rewatch for you guys, or on a first time viewing, you know, in this setting and context, in the case for me, it's a movie that I think you can appreciate a lot more than maybe history has given it credit for. So if any movie so far that's encapsulated that, I feel like this really embodies that essence, that ethos of the show. So I highly recommend it. People who haven't seen it, like I said, you know, you could try to find it online to buy it on eBay and all that, but it's also free on YouTube, because I think it's worth the watch. You know what I mean? It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's like an hour 37. You know what I mean? And it moves fucking quick. Like that's that hour and a half feels like it's 20 minutes. Like the shit flies by.
And in all fairness, you could be on your phone for most of this. Like so,
exactly.
But like I think it's safe to say that the efforts of both Matt Salinger, Albert Pyun, and you know, undiscovered great musical genius Barry Goldberg, those efforts were truly heroic, because this shines a lot more than it should.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for joining us again. This has been Heroic Efforts. I hope we've introduced you to another little unknown gem. Come back and visit us next time, because we're going to have another one that we're looking at. We'll be teasing it on social media, obviously. And thank you once again for joining us. This has been a No More Talking production, which is very ironically named because we couldn't stop talking about this. But
par for the course
now,
at this point.
Exactly. No More Talking is the goal that we're trying to get to at the end of the episode. So, on that note, we will say goodbye to you guys for now, and we will see you next time.
Later, everybody.
See you guys next time.
Hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. It really helps us out. And be sure to tune in next week for more Heroic Efforts. Heroic Efforts is a No More Talking production. All rights reserved.